Welcome to another digital edition of Trailer Hitch. I am Kevin.
I am James. It's good to see you, computer screen and microphone again, because that's all I'm looking at right now.
Your computer screen right now, James, it's waving back at you because I am waving at you. I'm waving at my screen. I'm hoping there's a transitive property that happens here. We're not used to doing it this way, so maybe that doesn't come through at all.
It's the new normal, and if you need to do anything in these trying times, it's adjust to a new normal. That's the only way we're gonna strive ahead, I think.
That doesn't mean you can't better yourself. I am happy to report that since we recorded the last episode, I have done more than one push-up. I'm kind of getting used to it. I'm kind of getting into healthier habits.
Good.
That's not to say that I don't have whiskey. I do have whiskey directly next to me for this.
As do I.
Yes, and a digital cheers to our listeners, too, for joining us on this particular excursion.
I'm simulating the sound effect. Ready?
Oh, wow, that was good.
Thank you.
Have you been taking, digital Foley classes while...
Oh, I'm so glad you picked up on that. Yes, thank you. I have been.
Okay, cool. Well, I can't wait to hear what other noises you got for us, James, right after this theme song.
You can't haul your stuff without a trailer hitch. Trailer hitch.
Releases by the movie trailers. We're trailer hits. This movie might totally suck, but the whiskey sure is going down fine. Yeah, we're trailer hits.
Sorry, just knocking out one more quick push-up here. This is Trailer Hitch. Hi, welcome again, folks. This is a trailer review podcast where we rate and review movie trailers. We rate them on a scale of need to see more, or never need to see. If James and I both like a trailer, we give them need to see ratings. Celebrate, go, see the movie, report back to you guys in a segment called Trailer in the Rear View, in which we review the trailer in retrospect and see how it set us up for the film, and then review the film writ large as well. Now, you may have caught on to the whole... Oh, so you go and see a movie. Now, that still happens. It just is a shorter walk to see that movie. And we're going to be doing that today. We're actually going to be bringing up a movie that we have not reviewed the trailer for on the show because we are doing Onward, which was one of the first movies that was brought up for digital release, and now it is being released for free on Disney Plus. So
if you have Disney Plus, that is obviously.
If you have Disney Plus, yeah.
And as Kevin said, we have not talked about this movie at all, but these are weird times, Kevin. Like I said, it's the new normal. We got to find content, and content just happened into our Disney Plus sized laps because we are putting on the COVID-19. So Disney Plus size laps. It's a joke. It's a joke about size, but it's also a joke on the name of the Disney streaming service. I'm going to go ahead and cheers myself again because I thought that was really clever.
I don't know what the hell you're talking about, man. I just knocked out another 2 push-ups as you were saying all of that, so I am retaining peak physical Kevin form right over here. You can't hear me do it because I haven't taken a Foley class, but trust me, it's happening. Speaking of content, it turns out, again, someone somewhere is making trailers. Whether it be, I hope it's in the comfort of their own homes, or if they're just I'd like to imagine that they'd made a computer out of nearby sticks and were able to somehow cut together trailers for Valley Girl, which is a movie that we'll be talking about in a little bit.
Absolutely.
Or a trailer for Capone, which is a biopic of the gangster of the same name starring Tom Hardy. We'll get there. But before we do, we got to take a little detour quick. We got to do a trailer repair. Now, trailer repair is where James and I, on a previous episode, goofed. We goofed in a fashion that requires us to correct ourselves. Because sometimes we make mistakes.
And you know what else is fun, Kevin? Is that I have a little theme song for a trailer repair, too, that I can put in right here. I'm going to do it. Trailer repair. We're doing some repairs on the trailer because it needs it done because we fucked up.
Yes, this is trailer repair, and we have to correct something that happened on just our very last episode. Now, we reviewed a trailer for The Main Event last week. This is a wrestling movie that's on Netflix. I'm pretty sure by the time you listen to this episode, it's out and you can watch it right now.
Yeah, and you can listen to our episode also on it, which is probably just as entertaining.
I was about to say, if you do decide to watch it, you'd be alone in that. James and I both gave it a never need to see, but just because we said we didn't want to watch it doesn't mean that we can't do right by it.
Correct.
And James and I were talking back and forth as we were watching the trailer. The premise of the film is the kid finds a mask that is magical, and when he puts it on, he becomes a great wrestler.
Not just a great wrestler, a superhero.
I don't want to have to do another trailer repair just on this trailer repair, so thank you.
Could you imagine the theme song that would need?
I wanted to correct because we were talking about where he finds the mask. And in the episode, James and I kind of went back and forth about, oh yeah, I guess it's just in his attic. And we had a really great running gag through the episode about that. I'm not here to correct that gag because I stand by it, but I am willing to correct. He does not find the mask in his attic. He is chased by a gaggle of bullies into a different location, whether that be a museum or someplace else, and that is where he finds the mask.
Or a school attic.
It could be. It's one of those things where now I'm going to be vague as shit, so I don't have to do another one of these. So we would just like to extend our mea culpas to the main event. We would like to say thank you for our patience on this. We are in the middle of a goddamn pandemic, and thank you for bearing with us.
Yeah, you can be a mea culprit all you want. I'm just going to say I'm sorry for messing that up.
Do you know what mea culpa is, James?
I think I've made it very clear 3 times now. I don't know what that means, Kevin.
Well, it was a movie starring Mila Jovovich and Sharlto Copley. I think you'd really like it. Stream it while you're in containment. So,
sure.
Next, we're going to move on from the Mila Jovoviches. We're going to move on from the mea culpas. We're going to move on from James's Foley work.
How dare you?
Because we are cooped up, guys. We're just as cooped up as you are. We're recording this separately in our apartments. Once again, James and I are going the extra 1.5 miles on the 6-foot rule, and we're keeping 1.5 miles distance from each other. But in between James and I, in that 1.5 miles, is Sherman Oaks, California, which also happens to be the location of the next trailer we're talking about. This is Valley Girl.
Want to get out of here?
Where would you want to go?
Anywhere.
This is bad news. We don't date guys like that.
Maybe that's good for a change.
Why are you doing this?
I got a special guest here this evening.
There's this fashion college,
Where is it?
New York City.
You're not moving across the country.
You have this shiny, bright, perfect life. I don't know how to fit into this.
Oh my god, so like, it's totally Valley Girl. This is directed by Rachel Lee Goldenberg.
As if. Wait, that's clueless.
It's also written by Amy Talkington. And this is, I'm not going to do this voice the entire time. I was half-assing the voice anyway. James, go back in and post and do some Foley work to make me sound more like a Valley Girl.
No.
Fine, I'll live and die by my own shitty acting.
Kevin, while we're living in the new normal, we also have to find a new definition for the new Valley Girl sound. And why can't it just be our normal voices, huh? Why is that not also acceptable as the new Valley voice?
James, follow me on this. 1, we are in the Valley. 2, gender is a fluid concept because it's 2020, baby. As such, technically, this could be a Valley Girl voice.
That's right. It's more like Valley Girl, like Guurl.
I like that.
Yeah, cool.
Hashtag feminism. Let's go. All right. So next, this is starring Mae Whitman, Peyton List, Alicia Silverstone, Jessica Roth from Happy Death Day to You fame.
Awesome.
Our random shout out, because we here at Trailer Hitch like to give random shout outs to cast and crew members because the top billed people tend to hog all the credit. So we are going to shout out Allison D. Moore, who was the Foley artist. Hey, Allison, good job being a Foley artist on that movie, bud. And also, I'm presuming you're the one giving James all of these lessons, and you're killing it.
Please. I'm looking for work right now. Probably you are as well, but yeah, I appreciate you. Cheers. How about another cheers for the Foley artists?
So, what's going on in Valley Girl? This starts off with a girl coming home from someplace. She seems to be upset about something, and her mom picks up on that and is like, "Sweetie, what's going on? What's the deal here?" And this daughter says, "Oh, well, me and so-and-so broke up." And the mom's like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. That's so rough." And the daughter cuts her off and goes, "Stop. You wouldn't understand, Mom." I guess implying that her mom was just made in a tube and did not have a life before her daughter was born.
I mean, that's basically how all teenagers think of their parents, I would assume.
I don't know. I felt like I was usually pretty cognizant of the fact that my parents had lives. At the very least, they had their wedding photo up, so I was like, no shit, they were 22 at some point. But okay, so the
Man, I'm
daughter.
old.
So
I'm like, 22. That was so long ago for me.
right.
Anyway, continue.
If we tried to console this teenage girl, James, she would probably be like, "You guys just don't understand."
Yeah, and then I would do a dab and a floss, and then they'd be like, "You get me. You're hip," and I'd be like, "I know."
alas, the mom has to convince her daughter that, she was a person too, so she decides to tell her a little story. This story takes place in the 80s, in the Valley, in Sherman Oaks. And if you are a fan of 80s movies or cheesy Nick Cage movies, this is probably starting to sound familiar because there is a Nick Cage movie called Valley Girl. Is this a spiritual sequel, a remake, what have you? I will say from the onset, this does feel like the Mamma Mia 2 of Valley Girl, definitely carrying off the traditions of the first Valley Girl, and there's whimsical songs. This Valley Girl gets up and she's in a mall with her friends and they're dancing and they're singing, and then all of a sudden you hear, wait, and we go back to the mom telling this daughter this story, and the daughter says, "You're telling me you danced on a fountain?" And the mom goes, "Well, that's how I remembered it." Now, I'm cool with this. I'm absolutely cool with it. I will say, though...
Your hesitation said differently, but I'm glad you're cool with this is the thing you ended up landing.
Nope, I am definitely cool with this. I will say this probably isn't really selling the daughter on her mom actually telling a real story right now, but that's okay.
What I need is a Fred Savage Princess Bride thing keeping the daughter there.
Sure.
I know Fred Savage was bedridden and sick. He couldn't move, so might as well hear this pathetic story. There is nothing keeping this daughter there right now, but I need something in this movie that is essentially a handcuff that makes that daughter listen to this whole freaking story.
Maybe the daughter is recording this all on TikTok and is just roasting her mom to her friends unbeknownst to her mom. Anyway, over the course of the next 2.5 minutes, we get plenty of singing and dancing. But all of a sudden, there's a boy, and he's got sleeveless flannel shirts. He seems to be a bad boy, and this kid looks at our Valley Girl, who is played by the woman Jessica Roth from Happy Death Day.
Who I love in those movies, and I'm excited to see her in more stuff.
Absolutely. Looks at our Valley Girl and is like, "Hey, you, I'm all about this." And Jessica Roth looks at him and is like, "Well, I can see your arms, and so I don't have any question that this is going to be a good time for me. Let's do it, buddy." So then off they go, off into 80s California. Now, maybe you remember the 80s as, Reagan, crack cocaine, and AIDS. Not a goddamn one of those things in sight. Everything is light and happy, and everyone can agree that Ghostbusters is good. That's what this version of the 80s is. And we have all these characters singing songs. And in case you were like, what sort of original songs are you going to have our Nick Cage surrogate sing? Don't worry about it. These are all pop songs. These are like 80s new wave. We have Aha's Take On Me in here. We have the Go-Go's We Got the Beat.
Oh, yeah, okay.
The best way I can describe this trailer is it's basically Rock of Ages, but instead of 80s hair metal, it's 80s new wave.
Yeah, and when I looked up this trailer and found it on websites and stuff, they were referring to it as jukebox musical, which I've never heard that term before, but I'm like,
okay.
It's an excellent term to describe what this is. So I like that term. And like you said, Rock of Ages definitely fits that description as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do get a little bit of conflict in here. The hot bad boy wants to swoop her off her feet and move across the country. And her parents are like, "Bro, you're like 16. Absolutely not." And then she runs upstairs and lies on your bed because parents just don't understand. And we don't see it, but presumably she then looks at her daughter in the present day and is like, "So you see, I get it." And the daughter's like, yeah, mom, whatever. As she's like putting devil horns and like a little mustache on her on the TikTok and
vomiting a rainbow. That's still popular, right?
Just spit roasting her digitally. It's just not fair.
I would love to just cut to Alicia Silverstone and her daughter, and the daughter's like, "Well, we're clearly still in the valley, so I guess we all know you don't follow your dreams to New York."
I was just about to bring that up. Obviously, we kind of know how this ends just based on it's one of those things where because of the framing device, we obviously know she doesn't go off. And as such, yes, it does take away some of the dramatic tension.
But do we know? Because I don't remember, but is the framing device stuff with Alicia Silverstone, it's just in the house. So we don't really know if they're in California or New York, right?
That's fair. Yeah.
So the audience doesn't know. But the second the mom starts telling this story, the daughter is going to know how it ends. Because the daughter will obviously know where they live. We won't.
The daughter's going to look up from her TikTok and be like, yeah, Mom, no, I remember what happened to Dad. You divorced a week and a half ago. Like, thanks for the great TikTok content, though. But even though, sure, like, we might not have a lot of dramatic tension because, you know, it kind of seems like we already know the story based on the trailer, doesn't fucking matter because this is purely meant as escapism. And so really, for me, the question is, did I have a good time? And for the most part, yeah, I did. Like, I definitely thought that the choreography was decent. There wasn't anything in there that like completely kicked my ass like the In the Heights trailer did.
The bar has been raised.
Yes.
When it comes to like choreography and obviously original music. This trailer doesn't quite meet that bar, but I agree with you that I think there is merit here and there is fun to be had. But man, the second you brought up In the Heights, I'm just like, I'm so bummed we don't get to see this movie for another question mark amount of time.
Yeah, so it might not necessarily hit those heights, but this does definitely seem fun.
So it's not so much of a new height, but more of just like stuck in a valley is what you're trying to tell me?
God damn it, that's brilliant.
I'm just ripping off of what you're giving me already.
You're knocking it out of the park. I should take that Foley class too, so I can up my game.
Cheers. There we go.
Yeah, I am enjoying this. It definitely seems like this seems a little bit more geared toward teens, especially in the I'm the bad boy and I just can't seem to fit in amongst all the preppy kids as he punches one in the goddamn chin. I think overall for me, I'm definitely curious about this.
Yeah.
Like my curiosity is definitely peaked. I actually haven't seen the 80s Valley Girl.
I have not either.
Yeah, I can't really get into specifics about whether or not this is sticking really closely, or if it's just a massive fucking coincidence that this is also called Valley Girl and also set in Sherman Oaks. But I'm definitely enjoying this, even though this isn't necessarily my usual bread and butter. But how about you, James? What are you thinking?
Oh, this is very much my bread and butter. So, and I think you know that about me. Like, I love 80s new wave music. I love big, colorful dance choreography. I thought this was awesome. I love California. I moved here and I didn't move back, so I must like it to a certain extent. I loved everything about this trailer. It was cheesy at times, but just like the wholesome kind of cheese, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, the choreography isn't like In the Heights level, but it was fun. It looked very poppy and energetic. Everyone in it looked like they were giving their all. If I wanted to compare it to another musical, we talked about ages ago, La La Land, and how a little disappointed I was that they didn't have like these giant musical numbers that the trailers kind of said they would have. They had like the one at the beginning. Rocket Man, the Elton John biopic musical. Like, I loved that movie. But like my one criticism was I just wish there was bigger dance choreographed numbers. Like the music was spectacular in it. There was like 2 scenes that had like a big ensemble dance choreography number. And I'm like, I just want more of that. I don't get to go out to the stage show musicals anymore. A, because I don't have much time, and B, because they're fucking expensive as hell. And I don't have that much money to be dropping on going to the Pantages all the time. But I miss those. So when it comes to musical movies, I want more of that. And I think this movie will give me more of that than the past movies have.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I definitely feel like movie trailers, especially with musicals, have kind of upped their game in the sense of like actually showing me the musical component. Because I think I kind of remember Mary Poppins Returns kind of being not as forthright with its music. I'm definitely appreciating the fact that movie musical trailers now are like, we're out and proud. This is a fucking musical, and if you don't like it, check that shit out the door, because we're here to dance and have fun, buddy.
And get loaded and have a good time.
Basically, all right, man, what would you give this?
This is my bread and butter. Like I said, I loved everything about this, so this is a need to see it for me.
Okay, cool. This is not my bread and butter nor my jam, but it's my baked beans. You know, I can appreciate this every once in a while. That said, baked beans for me are sometimes food. So this is going to be a need to see more for me.
Yeah,
There are
okay.
things about this that, yeah, like I think are kind of fun. I definitely think some of the cheesiness is a little bit too much for me at certain points, but I will say that if this is your thing, obviously you can tell by James, like Run Don't Walk. You should definitely see this trailer and get excited for it. So we are going to get out of the valley and we are going to go, what's that phrase about being in the shadow of the valley and like bad things? So basically Capone's not a good guy. That's what I want to get at. You're going to get more of that when we talk about Capone in just a second here.
Do you know what the difference is between Adolf Hitler and Al Capone? Hitler's dead. Capone lives like a king in Florida.
He has full-blown dementia.
I have reason to believe that could all be an elaborate act. We have information that your client may have tucked away a very large sum of money.
He's gonna go on a rampage.
We made a promise. Someday we was gonna make it.
All right, get in here, folks. We're ready to bootleg and smuggle an opinion about Capone for you. This is Capone, written and directed by Josh Trank. This is starring Tom Hardy, Linda Cardellini, Matt Dillon, and Kyle MacLachlan. Our random shout out is, of course, going to go to Tapio Lukanen, who was the Foley artist. Hey, Tapio, good job, bud. You did Foley on a movie. This is an all Foley artist episode.
Let's keep the good times a clinking, huh?
All right, at this point now, I feel like you got to take the second class. I need more sounds out of you, James. All right, so you might be hearing Capone, and you may have gotten like the faintest whiff of a memory of Black Mass, which was the Johnny Depp crime movie based on a career criminal. And you were like, feels like these movies are a dime a dozen. What's really different about this one?
You're talking about Public Enemy, right?
Close. I'm talking about The Departed. So what's different about this? What's different is this is focusing on a very specific part of Al Capone's life, and that's weirdly enough toward the end of it. So Al Capone had dementia, but he also had hidden a shitload of money somewhere. And because Al Capone now has like soup brain, everyone's trying to figure out where this money is.
Also, I want to point out how this trailer very interestingly omits the fact that in addition to dementia, in addition to a buttload of money, he also had syphilis around this time, and his dick was just like falling off, I'm pretty sure.
I assume there was a creative decision made, man, because you really don't see Al Capone speak all that much in this trailer. He's rendered largely mute. And I'm sure it's because in real life, he'd be like, I have dementia. Where am I? Why does my dick hurt? And then that would just cycle every 30 seconds.
Or the producers just aren't sure about Tom Hardy's accent. And
which we only hear once, and it's strangely unmemorable.
Maybe if he was wearing a mask and he was barely audible, I think it would just stick out in my mind more memorably.
I was born in the syphilis, raised in it. But yeah, so we have a bunch of people who are vying for Al Capone's money. They make allusions to the fact that because he has dementia, that makes him more dangerous. We don't really see him enact that danger. You get a shot of him walking through a crowd of dead people, but at the same time, I didn't really get the impression he killed them. There definitely seems to be some surrealist touches here or there. There's one point where he's laying on his back in a river and there's an alligator between his legs, and Al Capone's like, wow, wow. And
he just had to come up with another reason why his dick was coming off instead of the embarrassing syphilis, and it was an alligator took it off.
Maybe that's the reason why the alligator didn't attack him. It pops up in the water, takes a couple sniffs, and is like, oh, that's syphilis, and then just kind of stinks back down.
I mean, they did show Al Capone with a Tommy gun at one point near the end of the trailer.
Right at the end, yeah.
I think that kind of lent some credence to him kind of losing his edge.
I think that might be my biggest note in here, is the trailer is very much focused on Capone, which probably isn't a surprise given that this is called Capone, but he is rendered largely mute throughout all of this. And it kind of is then up to the supporting characters to kind of pick up the slack for the narrative.
Right.
I didn't really feel like they built enough of the characters around Capone. Like, don't get me wrong, I can tell they want money, but at the same time, I don't really know who any of them are in context to Capone.
Yeah, I think we needed a little bit more other characters, like a Rex Banner type from Simpsons. Like someone
Sure.
someone literally just like, I gotta get that Capone.
Exactly. And especially from the danger aspect. At one point, someone's walking in the dark and then Al Capone lights a lighter and then stares at him menacingly in the dark. But again, he doesn't speak. And presumably, if he did, Al Capone would just lean in and be like, do you have my dick medication? I'm not really feeling Al Capone even really yet. I feel like the things that did stick out with me the most were those little touches where he's laying on his back and an alligator sniffs his dick. He walks through a crowd of dead people at a party. So I know this is why his brain is going in this direction. Could be really interesting, but I definitely need that built up way more.
Well, I totally agree with you. I think there was a lot to be desired in this trailer. I think he looks good. Again, we don't get much of the voice. We don't get much of side characters other than just like them trying to like, tell me where your money is, you know?
Sure.
Well, all my brain keeps going to is wanting to take the piss out of it because he had syphilis at this point. I want the movie to take the piss out of Al Capone. I find Al Capone an insanely fascinating historical figure. And I just want a movie where he's not just like this never-ending badass all the time. We gotta get some syphilis. I never thought I would say that, but it just needs more syphilis.
You know what, James? I'm going to come out and say it. I agree with you. This movie needs more syphilis.
But I don't know. I think the visuals of the trailer look good. I think it was edited really well. I liked the string instruments for the score throughout the trailer.
Sure.
There is good things in the trailer, but when it comes to like, does it make me want to go see this movie? Not quite yet. I want to see more syphilis. Need to see more.
Okay, as of right now, especially because of the lack of syphilis, and realistically because I feel like it's not building up its characters enough, which I feel like is necessary to distinguish it from gangster biopics. Because of that, I am at a never need to see with this right now.
Okay, cool.
Even though in theory, again, I just would have to get up and walk over to my couch to see it. You know, I feel like there definitely could be more established to really get me excited and to be like, I'm excited to sit down and watch it.
Yeah, no, totally agree.
Mm-hmm. But speaking of containment viewing, we've done some containment viewing, James.
We have.
It's one of those things where we're not allowed to leave the house, but that doesn't mean that we can't go onward. And that's exactly what we did, folks. This is Onward.
What was Dad like?
His beard was scratchy. He had a goofy laugh.
I wish I'd met him.
I have something for you from your dad.
It's a wizard staff. This spell brings him back. Hang on!
Dad?
Just no top part. We've only got 24 hours to bring back the rest of Dad. We're going on a quest. Hold on!
I can't do it. We're not gonna see you, Dad.
You can do this. I believe in you.
So I never thought I would say this, but I think this movie needed less syphilis. So like that's just a crazy 180-degree turn that we did from Capone to this.
Variety is the spice of life, and sometimes that variety is less syphilis.
And I'm kidding. There's no syphilis in Onward.
But even if there is no syphilis, given that it is a kid's film, I'm going to go ahead and argue less syphilis. The less syphilis, the better.
That's fair. That's fair.
Let's move onward, folks. This is the newest Pixar movie. So James and I have never talked about the trailer on this podcast.
This is an unprecedented journey we're going down of reviewing a movie within our segment called Trailer in the Rear View when we haven't actually reviewed the trailer. I mean, we will talk about the trailer, but it's kind of interesting. But like I said, you know, we needed content, so here we are.
We especially needed syphilis-less content.
Syphilis-Less content is the best title ever. It's so good.
All right, so yes, we didn't review this, so yeah, we'll just kind of talk about the trailer briefly, but it will mostly be within context of the movie itself, so there will not be any spoilers in this section.
Correct.
You're still safe for the next little bit of this review. We'll let you know once we start getting into the specifics of the story and the characters, but as of right now, this trailer doesn't have a goddamn spoiler to be found.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
in terms of the trailer itself, I do feel like this sells the movie pretty effectively. I can definitely report that these trailers do definitely give you more or less what you're in for. I think really in retrospect, I feel like the magic component is played up quite a bit within the trailer. It's a lot of like shooting spells and stuff like that. But certainly for me, with my first viewing, the characters were definitely given just as much, if not more, focus than the actual magic component.
Yeah.
It really is the journey of these two brothers to try to be able to connect to their half-dad, really to take their half-dad and make a whole dad of him. Yeah, so for the most part, in retrospect, having watched the trailer again, I think that this does pretty much give you what you're in for. And if this is something that is interesting to you, definitely you can't go wrong with the full hour 40. But what are you thinking with this, James?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, there's no spoilers in this trailer, because are there really ever any spoilers in Pixar trailers ever?
Yeah, usually if they're going to kill someone off, it's in the first 10 minutes.
But yeah, even trailers of Up didn't open with his wife's dead.
Bring your kids
and go, but again, it doesn't leave out the elements that draw you to the film. There's magical, it's a magical romp. It's an adventure film. It's a road trip movie. It has all those elements, but it does touch on the human elements, the characteristics and desires of the characters. And it sets you up everything you need to know for this movie. And I think it's a perfect representation of what this movie is. So I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, overall, I don't really have too much to report on. I know there are quite a few instances where Pixar trailers tend to undersell the movie themselves. Like, specifically with Up. Were you prepared for how sad it was based off the trailer? Because I know I sure as shit wasn't.
Right.
With Onward, this is an instance where you're getting exactly what you're being pitched. And for some people, that's maybe not quite enough. And like, we'll certainly talk about some thoughts I had as I was watching it. And we'll go from there. But now, James, you want to talk about that movie?
Let's do it. Spoilers onward from here.
I believe there is a spoiler on The Guy's Fan. That's your first spoiler, and it's only going to get even more intense from there, folks. So, all right, so going into the movie itself, this for me was right on the same plane as The Good Dinosaur. Maybe slightly better than The Good Dinosaur in terms of Pixar's oeuvre. I remember sitting down and watching The Good Dinosaur, having a lot of people in my ear being like, it's not that good. And finishing The Good Dinosaur and going, I really enjoyed that. No, it's not necessarily WALL-E. It's not necessarily Up or Toy Story 3. But at the same time, not everything from the studio has to be lights out fucking amazing.
And we talked about that in the past, too.
Definitely. So. And it's one of those things where I got done watching Good Dinosaur and was like, I perfectly enjoyed that. And I thought about The Good Dinosaur again as I was watching Onward and was like, oh yeah, this is kind of reminding me of how I felt about The Good Dinosaur. And I went, oh, well, what was kind of holding me back with The Good Dinosaur? And honestly, James, I can't tell you. I have a distinct memory of watching The Good Dinosaur, but I really, dollars to donuts, if you were to have me write down a summary of the plot, I would just hit dinosaurs and stare at the paper the time.
Dinosaurs. Good? Question mark?
The Good Dinosaur, it's right in the name, folks. It's good. And with Onward, I kind of had that same feeling where I was like, yeah, I'm enjoying this. I definitely think this is entertaining. But at the same time, this isn't necessarily hitting me nearly as hard as other Pixar films.
Sure.
Because I do feel like, to an extent, at least with Onward, there are definitely aspects about this movie where I feel like they're trying to hit you in the gut in the same way something like Coco does, or like Up, where it's like, we definitely want you to feel something for these characters.
Yeah.
And I think for me, just to kind of go over it, is these two brothers do have their half-dad. They kind of bicker with each other. You can tell that Tom Holland's character kind of resents his older brother for being a fuck-up. And eventually they reconcile, and Tom Holland's character recognizes, hey, my dad died when I was like a baby.
Yeah.
And so really my father figure was my older brother, and he was always there, and he was always looking out for me. As someone with a brother, two brothers, as a matter of fact, that's something where I'm like, this should blow my fucking head off. Like, I should be just sobbing a river. Now, having seen the movie, I think that is such a sweet sentiment, and I love that theme so much. I think in the context of this movie, the reason why it's not quite slapping for me is because I only know the relationship between these two brothers from the point in which Tom Holland, zaps his half-dad to life on. So right at the very end when Tom Holland realizes, oh no, my brother's really been there for me my entire life. we get flashback stuff and it's very sweet, but ultimately because I haven't seen those characters grow up together, it doesn't necessarily hit me quite as hard if I had seen them growing up together earlier.
Okay.
That's why I think Up is so effective, is because you see the couple's lives for the first 10 minutes of the movie and then seeing that relationship come to an end. So then that way, when you get to the end of the film where he goes through the scrapbook and sees that she's filled in the rest of their adventure with what we have already seen, making the point that their life together was the adventure. I'm tearing up right now saying this.
Sure.
Fucking kills me every time because I have a connection to those moments. I think that's why that, just as kind of like here's why I think this really works for me with Up, but doesn't necessarily quite work with me for Onward. But what's your rebuttal, James? And I hope, due to your Foley class, it's a bunch of ducks quacking.
It's not, unfortunately. It's a tough comparison to make to Up. And I know why you made it. And I think on a surface level, it makes sense that you make it. But the difference there is that when you are watching the beginning of Up, you are not watching these scenes. And then after she passes away and after you're watching Carl be a curmudgeon.
Yeah. Assaulting a construction worker.
You're not in your head going, are you an idiot, Carl? You just had an adventure with your wife. It's because the desire was for an adventure that they were both aspiring to. So it works in Up. In Onward, I don't think it would be as effective if we saw like a montagey Up scene of these two brothers growing up with each other, because the whole movie you would be kind of yelling at Ian, you idiot, your brother has been there your whole life, not your dad. And you need to save that for the end of the film. So I don't think it exactly is a 1-to-1 ratio of Up.
And I do think that that's an interesting point, man. And I would agree with you that it would be definitely harder to conceal the point or message that Ian's character has to learn if you were to kind of see these two grow up together. But there is actually another thing that's different, is even though Up can certainly get whimsical, Onward is definitely set. It's a high concept. It is definitely a different world from what we're used to.
Oh, for sure.
So the beginning of the film, because I think if I were to go back in time and describe this to me as someone who hadn't seen Onward, I'd be like, oh, that's really surprising that Pixar didn't do characterization in the first 10 minutes. And ultimately, it's because they take that first chunk of runtime specifically to set up like the world.
Yeah, they had to do world building.
And I'm completely empathetic to that. I just think it might have been interesting when we're getting that world building, seeing it in the context of this household as they're growing up, as you're seeing the mom starting to get over her husband and find a new partner, as you're seeing the oldest brother maybe like dropping out of high school so he can stick around the house a little bit more. Because on the surface, that seems like he's a fuck up. But in reality, he's hanging out because his little brother is still there. Sure. And he wants to make sure he's okay. But that said, I do think that there's some really fun stuff in this. I really dug Octavia Spencer's character in this. At one point, the character's...
The Manticore.
The Manticore, yeah. And it turns out that she's the manager of what's effectively a Chuck E. Cheese knockoff with him. And it is so fun seeing her throughout that scene, uncomfortable, not just with the fact that the boys are asking about it because she doesn't want to send them off to a quest and for them to get hurt, but also you can tell she is fucking miserable running this restaurant. Then you see her kind of recognize, what have I become? And she burns her own restaurant down and it slaps. It is so fun.
You do not expect that scene to go that way.
It's so fun. And then you see that character team up with their mom, who is also kind of chasing after them to kind of try and find them. Because I definitely think something that can be hard with that structure, because it is, the characters go into a location and then the mom, well after they've been to that location, then trying to kind of catch up on what's going on. And I think that it could be easy for that to play as tedious, but it doesn't because the mom is so genuine in wanting to find her kids. And then you get the added comedy bits with the manticore on top of that. It honestly works really well. And I think it walks a really impressive tightrope.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
But so a big thing that you were selling me on was, dude, get ready for the pixie chase. Now, James, can you tell us about that pixie chase?
Oh my God. Yeah, I've seen the movie twice now. The pixie motorcycle highway chase scene is the best scene in this movie.
So
you
fun.
get the introduction of the pixies at a convenience store, and it's just a biker gang of pixies. They are maybe the funniest part. And like the lead pixie, anything that bumps into her is like quintessential like Hollywood biker gang anger issues type. Like, you got a problem, punk?
Yeah, but filtered through an exceptionally high voice.
Yeah, and it's just on the concept level of chipmunk pixie voice. Biker is hilarious. All this stuff with, you calling me lazy? No, not you. Your ancestors could fly. You calling my ancestors lazy? It's like absolutely hilarious. And that's all just the setup. Then they accidentally knock down all their bikes and then book it to the van, and they get on the highway, and then all these pixies on motorcycles are chasing them. And it felt like, I just felt like on the edge of my seat watching it. It took me back to when I was watching The Matrix Reloaded in the movie theater. It was my first R-rated movie, and my sister had to take me, and we had like a note signed by my mom saying that I could go to this R-rated movie. But the highway chase scene in The Matrix Reloaded is probably one of the best parts of that movie. And I felt like a kid watching this Onward motorcycle chase scene. It was thrilling. It was funny as hell. It was moving. There was character development happening within the action scene as well. Like, he was overcoming his fear of driving on the highway, and his brother was there the whole time helping him along the way while being chased by these ravenous pixies. It had everything. It had everything.
Yeah, definitely. And I think what that chase scene does such a good job at is kind of building off of the characters. So, I mean, in the beginning of the movie, you are seeing Ian taking the driving lessons. So you know the person who's driving doesn't really know or understand how to drive, and he's a bit timid about merging, and he's absolutely going to have to merge in this context. I thought that was so fun. I also think it does a really good job of incorporating Half-Dad. Half-Dad flops over Ian's lap, so his weekend at Bernie's half is sticking out the window, but due to the wind, it looks like he's shaking his fist at the fairies. It's so cool, and I think that chase sequence is probably the best aspects of the movie all crunched into one, like, 5 to 10 minute sequence.
Yeah,
like,
it's so good.
And there is still good stuff after that. I really liked the older brother's sacrifice of the van. There are really good things. I do kind of wish throughout the movie we would have gotten a bit more of that ingenuity we saw in the pixie chase sequence with Half-Dad throughout the rest of it. Because for the most part, the movie does inadvertently kind of shoot itself in the foot by only giving you Half-Dad. Thematically, I think it's a great idea because it's like, yeah, because they didn't really know him, it's just kind of like a half memory of their dad that's following them around. I think that's pretty smart. But I think from a practical standpoint, it does definitely limit what they can do with Half-Dad. And in the context of that pixie chase, they fucking found it. That's funny. That's what I want to see. But ultimately, it's a lot of like the dad kind of like gingerly putting his foot on top of his son's foot. It's just kind of, that's a problem that's baked within the premise. And I think they did what they could.
I watched it twice, and what's a cool thing that I caught the second time is, how they're dragging the Half-Dad around by a leash?
Yes.
By the end of the movie, he is much more receptive and goes with the flow of the leash, like way more, and it kind of builds towards it. Like, he gets better and better and better at just like going with the flow of his sons and feeling like this comfort level with them. Like, it's almost like he's trying to make the best of this also, even though he's not all there either.
No, that's a great observation, dude. I totally didn't catch that.
It's a subtle thing, and I think this movie was filled with subtle things that I just really appreciated. Did we want to talk about the ending?
We can, yes. Just because you're over the moon for it, how about you go?
Okay, so Ian, the younger brother, who has zero memories of his dad because he passed away before he was born, Like his whole drive is to meet his dad.
Mhm.
It's an important drive, and it's one you connect with. And it's important that you're on Ian's side. We're rooting for him to finish the spell so that he can meet his dad. The ending goes in a different direction, and it gets set up earlier. His older brother admits to him that he actually has one last memory of his dad, and it's just not his favorite. And it's because he basically pulls a Peter Quill from Guardians of the Galaxy. And when his dad is all hooked up in the hospital, he doesn't go in to say goodbye to his dad. So his last memory of his dad is refusing to say goodbye to him, and he was being afraid of him.
Yeah. He does also pull a Peter Quill in the beginning, by the way, when he inadvertently fucks up the spell, like Peter Quill when he fucks up the thing at the end of Infinity War. So really, the biggest thing to get across here is if Chris Pratt is asking to help on some kind of quest of some sort, put him on the bench.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's a B team kind of guy for sure. But he reveals this to Ian, and Ian like really takes this to heart. And obviously once they get really, 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 really close, and then it's just like yanked away from them again, that, oh, we were following the wrong way, and this led us all the way back to the school, and now I'll never be able to meet my dad. Obviously Ian is kind of all absorbed in himself again, which you can't blame him, because that was the whole point of this. And he's already forgotten about his brother's journey. And maybe we as audience members have already forgotten about his brother's journey. But once the brother finds the gem and gets things started again, Ian has his like one on half with his half dad, realizing his brother was really the one there for him this whole time. It landed so much with me that it was important to Ian to give his brother that goodbye that he never gotten. I just think that was such an excellent way to subvert what we thought this movie was about, and just go in a direction that still fit all the characters. It still fit the plot. It just went in a direction that I wasn't expecting. I melted while watching it. Like I was crying both times at the bravery and selflessness that Ian had to overcome in order to recognize that, no, a person who knew his dad and loved his dad and didn't get to say goodbye deserves a goodbye more than I deserve to meet someone I've never met.
Deserves a goodbye more than a hello.
It was so epic to me. And the whole movie title of Onward is about Ian letting go of just trying to grasp onto the past of his dad and just looking onward.
Yeah.
And for his brother needed to say goodbye to be able to move onward. So it's both of them moving onward, and Ian realizing that this is more important than meeting my dad. And that just fucking got me.
It was a bold choice, especially for Pixar, because I think their boldest decisions are, it's a kid's movie, but we're going to gut you. We're going to talk about death.
Yeah.
I appreciated with this one how it doesn't go for what feels like the obvious feel-good route. And I think you said it really well, man. Like, it definitely does subvert where you think it's going to go. In the moment, it was a choice that I didn't dislike. I was kind of ambivalent to. I think
most people were, actually. I think you were in the majority there.
And for me, it was mostly just, we still see from afar, we see the older brother talking to the dad and being able to have that hug and say goodbye. And then the older brother comes back to Ian, basically is like, hey, dad wanted to relay these things for you. On an intellectual level, I split both ways with that. On one way, I'm like, that's so cool, because in this moment where Chris Pratt's character finally gets that release, he finally gets to say goodbye, and even in that moment, he's still thinking about his younger brother. And I think that is so selfless and so cool. But for whatever reason, in the moment, the other intellectual part of me swiped left and went, this does kind of feel like, hey, we gave this character a really great moment, and we let him have that moment on his own and gave him the space to have that moment. But fuck, Ian is our main character. Okay, so maybe he passes a message from the dad to Ian. It's so weird that, like, it hit pleasure centers, and it also in some ways felt like a cop-out at the same time for me.
I don't want to take anything away from it. I think that's all valid, and a lot of people feel that way. I think cop out.
I was about to say cop-out was harsh, and I don't mean to go quite that hard on it. It's a double-edged sword. I think now kind of being able to process my thoughts a little bit more, it is definitely a have your cake and eat it too moment, because we're letting this character have this space while also still giving some sort of emotional resolution to Ian for his journey with his dad.
And what's nice about it too is because you're with Ian in that moment, you get to be with him when it's clear on his face that he still wants to be there. And he's trying to be there, and he realizes the sun is about to set. Why waste his energy? At least try and watch through the hole. And you could tell he's bummed. And like, I'm glad they didn't shy away from that. That would have felt like a cop-out to me, is if Ian was just like happy-go-lucky. I'm so happy my older brother got to say goodbye to my dad. And I'm great because my brother was basically my dad. And everything's great. And I'm happy. You could see the sadness on his face. And I thought that was bold and important. And I think Barley knew his brother would be sad, which is why he had to give him that nugget. And the dad obviously would ask about him. This was a gift for both of them. And he spent the whole movie knowing there was both of them there with him, you know?
Again, man, it's one of those things where, like, I can so very much go either way on it. Like, I can totally understand why you connected with it, and I can also totally understand why someone would feel kind of let down by the ending. And I think it really is a matter of taste.
That's fair. I just, for a while, I was blindly just being like, well, then you missed the point. Like, oh, you felt let down because Ian didn't get to meet his dad, and that isn't the point of the movie. And maybe that's harsh for me to make that generalization,
Correct.
But I generally don't understand what is disappointing about it if it's not just that's not what the movie is about. The movie is about him coming to terms with the fact that there's more important things than him meeting his dad. Because that is the point of the movie, I have a hard time understanding what people's disappointment is. But also, real quick, the action during the end also completely slapped for me. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. It incorporated,
I love the design of the final dragon.
The dragon was epic, and it incorporated the manticore. It incorporated the mom in her workout routines in the morning.
Yeah.
It incorporated every like magical spell that we have set up in the movie. And it was a masterful mix of everything building up and then finally coming to a head at the finale. I thought it was great. Yeah.
Definitely. Okay, well, do you want to get to a rating list, my good man?
Let's do it.
The rating scale for Trailer in the Review is should see again as our tippy top. Then we go to glad I saw it, should have waited, or shouldn't have seen it.
Yeah.
I feel like you tipped your hand because you saw it twice, but you want to tell us what you rated it?
I would say I saw it again because it just was so easy to see it again, because we are stuck at home. It's on Disney Plus. I have it at my disposal. I am very adamant that I like keeping that should see it again for the best movies that I see in a year. Do I think this was one of the best movies I've seen this year? I'm not prepared to say that yet. So therefore, I give this a very high glad I saw it.
All right, very cool, man. And this for me is a glad I saw it as well. It's kind of interesting because I'll never know what it'll feel like to walk out of a movie theater having seen this. I don't know if that would have necessarily changed, but definitely like at home, even though there were definitely things that didn't quite land as much for me, overall, I was still very happy that I saw it.
Yeah, I was a big fan of it. In terms of ranking it, I know you put it by The Good Dinosaur, and a lot of people do. Friend of the show, Joe Chattel, also, I think he ranked it slightly above Cars 2, which in my brain was just like, ouch.
Yeah, I've actually seen Cars 2. That one's rough going. Onward is definitely better than Cars 2.
I don't know, because I'm not going to go through all Pixar movies, but I liked this more than Toy Story 4. I will say that, that's pretty recent in my mind, which is why I can confidently say that.
Sure.
It was really fun talking about this. Thank you for doing this. I know we were kind of apprehensive because we've never talked about this movie on the show before, but
Syphilis-Less content, baby. We needed it. Now, if you want to find that kind of content, folks, you're going to have to look elsewhere because this is the end of the episode. Before we go, I'm assuming you're listening to us on either iTunes, Stitcher, or YouTube. But if you're not listening to us on one of those and you're bored, why not switch to one of those for fun? And while you're on iTunes, be sure to rate and review us and subscribe to us. It helps us find more listeners so other people can reach out and talk to us about Onward. And how would you be able to talk to us about Onward? Well, good news. You can leave a comment on YouTube. You are also welcome to email us. You can hit us up at trailerhitchmailbox@gmail.com for longer thoughts. If you want to shorten those thoughts up, you can send us a message on Facebook if you just search Trailer Hitch Podcast on that. If you want those thoughts to be even shorter, you can hit us up on Twitter at Trailer Hitch Pod. If you don't even want to write anything, but just take a picture of what your thoughts encompass, send us something on Instagram at Trailer Hitch Podcast. Otherwise, before we go, we'd like to thank Danny Schmitz from Lost in a Name for the amazing intro that you hear at the top of every episode. We'd like to thank Rachel Ashley for the amazing cover art that you see on her various social medias and iTunes. You can find her work at Mighty Creations on Instagram. We would also like to thank Jenny Hawks, our Bad Movie and social media correspondent, for her sterling work week in and week out. And we would also like to thank Casey Clowers for the amazing outro, which you will hear momentarily.
I got nothing else, Kevin, to add to that. So should we say bye?
All right, beautiful. We'd also like to thank you. I hope that this is finding your ears in your respective homes and that you are safe and that you are healthy and everyone in your life is also happy and, well, maybe not happy because we're all bored, but at least healthy and doing little things to kind of help the time pass. And if this helps, I'm glad to be of service.
Stay home, guys. Stay safe. And thanks for listening.
Bye.
Trailer Hitch.
Oh, can you hold for a sec? There's a dog outside.
I will not hold. I will not hold. Wait, you have a dog outside?
I think it probably sensed that we were going to be talking about, I don't know, maybe it has an opinion on Onward.
I'm the one with the noisy dog in the background. That's my thing. That's my thing. Tell him that. Tell the dog that.
The bit's already covered! I think it's trying to harmonize with something out there.
Oh, do you have other noises also happening?
We have kids in our apartment complex that hang out outside and play. There's like a 3-year-old that you can pretty much guarantee every day at like 5 or 6, she just like bawls her eyes out outside.
Like she's singing Memory from Cats and just like falling snot and tears.
That's the reason why we saw that movie, man. Is Tom Hooper drove by my apartment complex, saw that little girl, and was like, call T.S. Eliot's estate. I think I have something.
So she's not actually singing. It's just she's crying. In my head, I was picturing like a 3-year-old barbershop quartet and the dog wanted in on it. But okay.
Dude, if there are other 3-year-olds in that quartet, they got to step up because that girl's got some fucking pipes.